Hello, welcome to Insights from a Fractional CFO on Beard Bros Media. It's Ladies Day or Ladies Night from whichever time you're watching this, right, Dina?
Yes.
So first I want to say thanks to Bill, Jeff, and Brian of the Beard Bros. Thanks for putting these shows on. We love it. And the whole Beard Bros Media team, those folks that you don't see. Stay tuned on their website on Beard Bros Farms, PHARMS.com. There's a lot of events coming up. We'll all be hitting the road together, doing interviews as per usual. That's always really fun. As we all know, convention season, show season is starting. No more holidays. The holidays are over. Time to hit the ground running, right? So with that, my name is Rachel Wright. I'm with Verdant Strategies and 420 CPA. And I am here representing the fractional CFO side of things. And Dina, can you introduce yourself? Lovely Dina from Grass Goddess Consulting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel, so much for having me. Yeah, so I founded Grass Goddess Consulting. We consult with dispensaries on software and data. My background's in pharmaceuticals. I've been in the cannabis industry for almost 6 years now. And I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation about data and money and all that good stuff.
Awesome. And how about you, Sonya?
Oh, well, hi there. My name is Sonya. Rachel, thank you so much for having me as well. It is a pleasure. I am the founder and director of Cannabis Consulting. What we do is provide operational strategy and advisory to cannabis businesses based on the data insights that we gather in a variety of ways. What is unique is that I'm coming from 10 years of hands-on cannabis experience. I did it all. I did cultivation, I did retail. The only thing I've never touched was processing. So I combine that knowledge with real numbers, and I help businesses save money this way.
I love it. So I know data is not the most sexy topic in the world. People hear data and either they're really intrigued and enthralled, or they, turn around and head for the hills and, they just don't want to hear about data. So, but I actually think that data is a very sexy topic because it leads to the bottom line, right? And so if your bottom line is profitable, then your business is kind of sexy, right? And so, so I think therefore that data is very sexy and a really important topic to talk about because it's the ultimate profitability of your business, right? And so I want to chat about that a bit. Dina, do you want to kick that off?
Sure. Yeah. And I think definitely first of all, I've always felt the data is sexy. I'm a data person through and through. But I think that my experience working with you, Rachel, has really shown me some of the financial data and how that can really be interesting as well. My background in pharmaceuticals is around more of like inventory management, efficiencies, but obviously for, a cannabis business to grow, the financials are one of the, if not the most important thing to do that. So I think, looking at that and finding some of like the interesting things that we found that's unique to cannabis in that data, has been really interesting. So I don't know if you want to comment also on some of the stuff that we've worked on together with looking at the financials and various data of our clients.
Yeah, so some of the background that kind of started me on this quest, and eventually, Dina and now Sonya and I are getting to work together, was really looking at the financials with particularly my retail clients. And in looking at the retail clients, I noticed, and this is true, that if you can just tweak the gross profit line by a small margin, that can mean a lot of profitability for the clients, or at least break even and they're not losing money. And then you take that times multiple stores and, process improvements and efficiencies can make a huge difference. And so I began the quest to find the folks that could help me and my clients on that search. And two of them are here right now. So, part of this is diving into the data, the POSs, and extracting, cleaning up the data, right? And so that's not my area. And so, Sonya, do you want to kind of speak to that a bit?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I really want to say that data, whether it's sexy or not, it really doesn't matter in the end of the day, because you do need it, just like you need your intuition, your business knowledge, and ability to be, quick on your feet. Because without data, all of your anecdotes are just that's anecdotes, it's not information, and vice versa. Without the context into which you put the data, everything data-wise is just numbers. So of course it is important, and you cannot be a jack of all trades. That's why when Dina started talking about accounting, I'm just like, yeah, I kind of understand where the pains come from for accountants in cannabis, but I am specifically data-oriented person. However, I do understand that in the end of the day, data saves you money, because data, organized, transparent, visible, understandable, actionable, saves you money. It stops you from wasting your resources in a variety of ways. And you can even think, well, okay, 1%, if it's a small dispensary, what is that? What's the bottom line? Like $4,000 a month? It's nothing. It's someone's salary. So maybe people think that it's pebbles. It's not. It really is helping you to survive in a brutal cannabis market.
Definitely. And I guess it depends on what your gross revenue line item is, right? And so, some stores are doing anywhere from, well, it depends on actually where you are. There's stores I work with in less populous states, but so their gross revenue is going to be a lot lower. So it's hard to kind of compare across the different geographical regions. But like, let's say you have like a $5 million store, for example, and you just make a small tweak, that can make a world of a difference, right? And then if you have 10 $5 million stores, or if you have one $20 million store, these efficiencies in data and output and also analytics is huge, right? And so, Dina, do you want to speak to the integrity of the data, say, for example, in the POS systems, and why that's important and how that can add to the bottom line?
Yeah, definitely. Data integrity is something that's really important to me. Coming from my background in pharmaceuticals, like making sure the data is what it says it is, that's paramount. And so, yeah, I think that one of the things that we've experienced together, Rachel, is, clients, when they're switching point of sale systems and the way that the software companies handle this data. So, for example, there was a client I was working with over the summer. They switched from one point of sale system to another. And because costs is not required in the software, the company was just going to drop it when we did the import. And I was like, wait a second, we got to stop this right now, because if they lose their cost information, they have no margin information. They have no ability to see any of this financial stuff that we're talking about. So it's a big deal, and something that I think the cannabis community or industry doesn't totally understand, that these things are so important and that we need to keep this data clean and intact and traceable.
What would have happened if the client hadn't been working with you and their data came over completely without costs, for example?
They would have had to start from scratch and re-enter all of that information. And for a lot of clients, that's thousands of data points. It's not a small task.
Right.
Eventually, it's a huge headache. Eventually, sooner or later, you're bleeding money if you're not keeping your data organized and accurate. But in the end of the day, it's going to turn into a ginormous headache, point in case, or rather from everywhere. Marketing. Do you guys mind if I just start the sentence over and then Brandon just fixes?
Yeah, because he can edit it.
Okay, sounds good.
Great, and we're going to edit that.
Yeah, apologies. Just really want to be clear here.
Give it just a couple seconds. Cool. Roll.
So in the end of the day, integrity of data is important because sooner or later it's going to turn into a big headache for someone if the data is not organized. And who is the someone is a little bit of a Russian roulette because it depends on what you're not putting in, right? And if it's going to end up in the costs, is going to be a problem for your accountants. But let's say that you're not keeping the data about your customers, where they're coming from, their zip codes, when they were there last time, etc. So it's going to be a headache for marketers. So in the end of the day, data is just a glue. It's how we transfer information in the most efficient way.
Another issue I've seen that I've spoken to both you ladies about is, trying to get profitability, gross profit on each line item, and then product categories within the POS. And I want to talk about first the importance of having consistent categorization, naming conventions within your POS system. So do you want to chat about that? Why is that important that from the outset, when you're setting up your products and line items or SKUs, that you follow a certain naming convention and categorization trend?
I'm going to say one sentence and then hand it to Dina because she knows way better. But even we're working with programs, we're working with computers, we're working with code, and you need to feed the information to these systems that actually make the sense to the systems. So if all of my categories are all over the place, if my SKUs name one way, another way, it's Gorilla Glue in one way, GG4 in another, it's not going to read your POS correctly. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm sure Dina has way more to say about it.
I do appreciate that example though, because that Gorilla Glue example is real. I've seen Gorilla Glue, GG4, all these things so all over the place. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely a great example. And I think another good example, Rachel, I actually have working with your team from last week, very recently, is that if you don't have these categories lined up right, then when other people are using your data for things, for example, your accountants that are, making sure that you're paying your taxes correctly, then there might be some, variances there that don't make sense. So for example, I don't know if you want to get into this now, Rachel, but some of the stuff we do with the excise tax in California is we do different percentages on different categories. And so if you don't have those categories set up properly, then when you're looking at the data outside, you're going to get different information than what you're actually calculating at the point of sale system. So it causes a lot of issues.
Yeah. And so going back to, one of my difficulties was also trying, again, kind of going back to gross profit on certain line items and SKUs so that you can train your staff, your retail staff, your store managers. For example, the example I always use is like a vape, right? If you have 3 different SKUs, you don't know which one is the most profitable or which vendor is the most profitable, including credits, right? Because there's these credits that are very, very hard to track nowadays. If you don't know which product is the most profitable, and obviously the customers need to like it, how can you train your staff on which products to sell? So if we can't get down to the number 1, data integrity, and then 2, as a result of the data integrity and naming conventions, we can't get down to which SKU is the most profitable. How do we run our business, right?
Exactly. Credits are Rachel's bane of existence.
I'm like, how do we train staff to enter these credits properly? Well, and it's not that they can enter the credits properly. It's really just that the POS systems aren't quite designed yet for like an average cost system, right? And so, and also, unless we have a robust way to train the folks that are entering the SKUs within the POS system, how do you actually incorporate the credits from the vendors in there? My whole goal has been, let's just try to get true profitability per SKU so we can actually make some decisions, including what to sell, what customers like, what's best for the store to sell, but also reaching out to vendors and saying, hey, these credits aren't really working for us. So there's a lot of data points we can get, but without having the gross profit and training people on how to actually enter these SKUs, credits, anomalies, things like that, we just can't get there. And the POS systems aren't really designed. They're not that sophisticated yet. I'm sorry if people are watching this that are from said POS systems, but we need to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think no shade to the software companies because they're in a hard spot. They have to develop every different stage.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, we're not there yet. And there is a lot of room that we need to grow. And I think, hopefully they are listening and thinking about these things moving forward.
Yeah. So Sonya, do you train, say, retail teams on how to enter these SKUs properly, how to design the product categories?
Yes, and I think it is very important to also understand that every store is going to be a little bit different because people, how I said that it's important to put the consistent data in, but there is also another part where there are real people working with this data and it needs to be usable for them too, and they need to understand that, and they need to be absolutely clear why it is done the same way, not just following orders from someone that make no sense to them. So I do train my clients. I look at everything that they have in their inventory, at their branding, to understand where they stand with their brand, to understand who their competitors are, and I bring them the list of the categories that I think would work for them. I can give you a good example. Some people or some retailers would absolutely need to have their pre-rolls usual and pre-rolls infused to have two different categories. For some people, it really doesn't matter in the end of the day. So you decide it on case by case, and then you come to the team, I come to the team, and we talk through all of that, and we understand each other and make sure that this is working for them. And I make sure that this will work for accountants like you, for data analysts like Dina and myself. And we go from there. And it usually works very nicely because it makes everyone's life easier. Everyone's.
And Dina, I know you're working with some staff as well, and I see you working on some projects that we work on together. And you work directly with the staff. Can you tell us about the types of things that you're working on with them?
Yes, usually it is.
Sorry.
Oh my God, it wasn't Dina.
We could have just rolled with it. Brayden, we're going to cut that out.
It was Dina. I'm sorry.
It's hard to hear. No. It's hard to hear. Actually, you know what, Sonya? But you are working with some of the clients, so let's have you do that, and then we'll have Dina do it because it's kind of like a natural. Okay. There we go. Okay.
Right.
So Sonya, you're working directly with some clients on, teaching them how to set up the systems. So do you want to tell us about how that's going?
Yeah, I actually like doing that because, as I mentioned before, I was that client and I was that employee who had to get introduced to consultants and work with them. So I really understand all the grievances that cannabis industry workers have with consultants. That's why I think I can find common ground with teams pretty quickly. Because again, at the end of the day, I teach them how to be less stressed about their work, because all the systems that we implement, like POS organization, training on discounts, training on credit memos that Rachel and I discussed in our work, all of that ties to their peace of mind as well. And they also know that this is their project. They're going to run it after I'm done teaching them. And I just love working with the teams, long story short. Yeah.
Love that. And Dina, I know you're working with, we're on some of the same projects together. You're working with some of our clients and really, really hands-on with them, which I absolutely love as well. Can you tell us about some of the things you're working on with them?
Absolutely. Yeah. Kind of leading back to what I was talking about when I was working with your team and some of the things that we found with like incorrect categorization and problems that those cause. When we started digging into them, we found that some of the reports that were coming from the point of sale system had some issues that were really not going to work. So ultimately, what I thought would be the better way to go is to use an API connection to pull the data. And then, first of all, we can, pull the data and know that it's accurate and create the reports in the way that we think is best. So for your team, what they need specifically, so that we don't have to deal with any other like inaccuracies or issues that might show up in the point of sale reports. And then once we have that in place, there's so much else that we can do with taking that connection and adding in other data sources and building dashboards to really help with some of the financial health stuff that you're so passionate about.
Right, right. And then you work with the retail store stuff as well. How about some experiences there?
Absolutely. So yeah, I work directly with the people that are hands-on implementing in the software, work with them, make the changes in the software, make sure that they understand what's going on, do a lot of quality control processes with them. But like Sonya was saying, it is really important to keep them involved. And a lot of times, like when we need to bring in the software company, I let them sort of take the lead and then just assist in the way that's going to feel the best for them. So it's very nuanced and specific to the client, the way that we work together.
Definitely, definitely. Let's talk about, one of the reasons why data is so difficult. Well, actually, let me take a step back here. In working with both of you, I realize, well, we know this as well because I work in numbers, that data actually is kind of meaningless without analysis. I think that's the key. Having insights into the industry and being able to perhaps look at benchmarks, having other use cases or clients to compare data to, and then providing meaningful insights, I think is really where the rubber meets the road. Because what I've seen is a lot of times clients have dashboards of data. Are they acting on it? Are they prioritizing what's most important? Are they testing those dashboards, making sure they're correct? But most importantly, what kind of insights are these dashboards providing? And I think it's really, really important to not only teach people how to read the data, but also to spend time with them until they do understand how to read it and what the actionable items are. So in other words, can you speak to data is just data unless you know how to analyze it and take meaningful action?
Sonya, please go ahead. I think that you're amazing.
I see. Okay, now I'm just trying to hear my name. Yeah. You are actually on point. And first thing I want to say is second that. And I do always say that data without context is just numbers. I repeat it to a lot of people, a lot of my clients, a lot of people I advise, and isn't that true? And that's why it's important, just like Dina said, so I'm kind of riding on her thought here, that it's very nuanced. A good consultant, they're not only throwing reports at you and then you can deal with that yourself. I'm sorry, people on your team can do something similar too. So why would you need a consultant for that? A consultant is the person who is discovering this data through the business narrative in the end of the day and connects dots for this sustainable and holistic growth that we see with our clients. So whatever insights we can teach you, or a good consultant can teach you to read from the reports, they might change the trajectory of your business and vice versa. They can be nothing if nothing was explained and nothing wasn't put into context. of a particular business.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, Sonya, that you've talked about before that I think is really important that I'll just mention here is, some of the data that we have out there in the industry, whether it's, data that comes from Headset, there's New Frontier data, we have these different places that data is accessible to us, but is it really data that's meaningful that, that we can trust at this point? Like, are they really telling the whole story? And I think, Sonya, when we talked earlier, you had one example, and one example that I also like to bring up quite a bit is like some of the archetype data. I don't know that I fully buy into that. That like the demographic data is pretty fuzzy at this point. And especially when you're thinking about like medical versus recreational, that is really tough to capture accurately.
Yeah, medical versus recreational for sure, because many people who would shop on medical side before are switching to rec simply because it is easier to do. Yeah, but you are right. There are some examples of data. Usually it's the market data, and the problem with the market data, it is regulated differently than the data that you can get from your POS. So in many cases, the data that we see on software providers' decks are not going to be verified until either the end of the month, sometimes even longer, where the state data comes in and they're able to track it back. And of course, there are some data is noisy, just like Dina said, because there are some things that you just cannot do with it. You cannot collect 100% of your state data. Is going to be 20 to 40% that is being analyzed, and who are the remaining 60? Is it really an equal distribution here? So take it with a grain of salt, and yes, you're right. Because of that, you do need to know the context in which you're looking at the data.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, cannabis is highly hyper localized, right? So you might have a store in one city and then you have a store in the next city and it's completely different, right? And so Sonya, in some of the projects that, you've been working on with me, I've been working on with you, we look at exactly where, which market the retail store is in. So is it in a newer market? Is it in the Northeast? Is it in a medical market or a rec market? Are they in a tourist town, for example? What's their competition? And so those are all really, really important factors to look at. Are they right off of a freeway? What's their parking accessibility? What's their bandwidth to even accept more clients? Because as you start looking at, right?
What's the seasonality?
What's the seasonality?
It's down to about what's your climate, because people in Florida have different shopping patterns than people in Michigan.
Right.
Yeah, all of that is important.
Yeah. So, with the data, we also have to know the context, like you said. So that is actually some of the context to really, really understand your clients. And unfortunately, I don't think the data is quite there yet, where it takes all of those types of things into consideration. Right. So we still can't take the humans out of it. So to that point, I mean, we're trying to make businesses more profitable. That's one of my ultimate missions. How do we help clients when they're working out of multiple different systems? For example, you've got your POS, and then you may have a business intelligence type software, and then you've got a benchmarking kind of industry data software. Where does one go? What does one do in this world? In this world of data. Sorry, Dina.
I guess I'll start off. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to build something at this point. Like, there are some tools out there, but there's really not a lot. And I think that's some of what brought us three together, is just recognizing that there are these, gaps. And I think some of, the bigger companies, they've already come up with some things and have them. But I think we're all passionate that, you know, everybody has a place in this industry. And so making sure that people that don't necessarily have the ability to build something completely themselves can hire people like us to help them out with that.
Definitely. And Sonya? Yeah.
Yeah, you know how people talk about stacking their supplements if you go on Reddit and everyone is sharing that they're doing vitamin D and then some obscure ashwagandha mix and they just trying to find the perfect solution that works with their body. I think it's a direct analogy for a cannabis business. Ask anyone, they're going to give you a different answer on what's working for them together. It is like stacking your supplements.
Yeah.
In your software.
Yeah, I think we've all been on this quest, and we're brainstorming with some folks that aren't even on our podcast today. So definitely stay tuned there. Sonya, do you want to chat about maybe some of the retail insights reporting that we've been working on, and then maybe chat a bit about the dashboard that we've been talking about?
Oh, I think that I will just give a short overview on what we are working about right now, because the dashboard is a ball that we're going to throw to Dina to deal with. Yeah, so Rachel and I have been working together with a couple of clients now. It's going great. Rachel, I really appreciate the opportunity to learn from you and to have fun while doing it, because it's fun work here. So what we do the general audit of their inventory health and the POS health. But in the end of the day, other things kind of fall under this category because everything is tied together. So we do it top to bottom. We collect data, we clean data, we make data just noiseless, at least as much as possible. And then we'll look at all the patterns from the beginning of your operations, from your day one till yesterday. Of course, it takes some time. So yesterday becomes like till 2 weeks ago when we presented. But in the end of the day, we'll look at everything. We understand how they categorize. You can immediately see how well the inventory is maintained, how well the POS system is maintained. Just looking into that, you can pinpoint exactly how the business is doing in general, down to morality of staff, right? Mm-hmm. Like feeling about that. And we do that, and we come with very concise reports that is still quite long. That being said, it's an information that you probably need a couple of hours to really take in. So you kind of get this like deep, insightful class or like master class on what's inside your stores, something that you've never seen before, your blind spots, and the areas that can be addressed immediately. So you immediately start making a little bit more money and making your customers a little bit more happy. And we'll look at this data and we decide what are the next steps, the easy steps, and then the hard steps. And we're trying to understand everything. We're trying to understand how many SKUs are actually profitable in your stores. We're trying to understand what's your ideal perfect burn rate is. We're trying to understand whether or not you're scheduling your sales stuff properly, all of that. And then you just get it and you can get to work. I love this moment of giving the report to the client.
Yeah, and I think not just giving it to them, but providing insights. Providing insights is where it's at. And then to me, like, I don't like to just drop insights on clients. I like to make sure they are actually acting on it. So I like to, maybe it's a little bit of hand holding for a little while,
We'll set
up like meetings week after week, just to make sure there's some adoption, some understanding, and there's action actually being taken. I think that's really key. So I think that's where data becomes living, breathing action points, right? And insights. How about you, Dina?
On projects working on together or on that specific topic?
I guess on that specific, either that specific choose what you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, the follow-up and the hand-holding is important for what we do. I do think that, like, modeling behavior, checking in with people, because it is, you know, you don't want it to be just something where you, like, hand something over and then you leave it. I don't think that that's the way to make it the most effective. So I'll just sort of leave my comments at that for that one. But yeah, I think as far as like the stuff that we're working on together, like I am excited for the future and some of the stuff that we've discussed with like the dashboards and building out more of that. But I am also really passionate about the stuff that we've done with the excise taxes here in California. You know, Catalyst started this movement and, you know, is really going up against the CDTFA that, you know, you can't put a cannabis excise tax on a non-cannabis, you know, accessory component that somebody's buying. So time will tell. Things are, you know, still in a lot of flux in California. But I think that, you know, when you're working with a client and it makes sense to implement, you know, something like that, for me to go in and make sure that it's done in the best way, in a way that, you know, they're going to be able to show exactly what they did and, you know, how they implemented it and all of that. So yeah, that's been some really interesting work that we've done together as well.
And Dina is a goddess in that area. Grass goddess. Yeah, I'm telling you. So like, yeah, I mean, it's actually quite difficult, right? You know, each POS system is a little bit different. Do you want to give some insights into that, Dina?
Yeah, definitely. There are differences. There's differences in how you can set it up, how they handle the taxes, how they handle the components of each SKU. So you need to understand the point of sale system, the way to set it up. And I will say a lot of times, you know, we go in there and we find other things that they have set up that weren't proper either. So, you know, the stuff isn't straightforward, and getting somebody that knows what they're doing to really make sure that, you know, maybe you were set up properly, but then things change, the regulations change all the time. So it's something that I spend a lot of time on, is, you know, building these partnerships with the software companies, the point of sale companies, so that I can really, you know, help our clients in the best way, and make sure that I fully understand all the nitty gritty and these nuances.
Right.
Cannabis.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, California is a little unique in that it's tax on tax on tax. There's 3 layers of tax. Not every state is like that. California is particularly very, very difficult. So we have a real challenge in this state. And thank you so much, Dina, for all your help there. It's amazing. One of the things that Dina's been working on is just setting up the taxes in that particular way. And remember that local ordinances in various cities can define gross receipts very, very differently than others. So, you know, you actually have to look at the language of the law and the local jurisdiction that you're looking at. Same as, you know, when you're looking at the language of the law and the date that the laws were passed for excise tax, right? So if you're looking at the regulations, you have to look at the effective date. What did it say then? And is the legislation that's currently underway, is it actually approved, voted on? Or is it emergency regulations? And what is, you know, what's the authority on those laws, right? So I don't want to get into like a tax law, you know, program here, but it's quite complex. It's quite complex. And then on the back end, people understanding, like retailers understanding in California what type of risk they're taking by taking these positions. You have to go in like knowing, eyes wide open, right? So, you know, we're definitely not going to get into that, but we'll just say that's that there.
I was about to say, open the Pandora box.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We definitely a Pandora's box talking about that. We could have a whole show just on that. I mean, the point of this show is data integrity, data analytics, insights. You know, how does that increase the profitability of companies? So on that note, I want to see if you guys have any like last insights, comments, anything that I didn't touch on.
If you don't mind, I just would tell you that I always think about all of this through the metaphor of, I don't know, a garage or a kitchen. When everything is organized, like it's spring, you got everything out of your garage, you put everything in, you know where every wrench is, you know where all your junk that you're stuffing away is, you donated some, and you walk into this place and you want to work on there because everything is clean and everything is organized and you are not confused. You know that you're not going to be spending 5 minutes searching for a cord or an extension cord or something. You know where everything is, and it just makes it so much more fun and so much more productive. So that is kind of what I feel about I do with businesses through the data, is just making sure that it's just pleasant to work with in the end of the day too. It's easy as possible, because God's my witness, cannabis industry is tough. So I just wouldn't make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Dina?
Totally. And nobody likes clutter except for a hoarder. And we don't need hoarders.
Yep.
I love the way you put that, Sonya. That resonates. So I think the final thought that I just like to leave everyone with is like, for people to take a look at their data and really think about, like, is this data that you can use? And if it's not, if you have dirty data, start to clean it up. Look at those naming conventions, look at missing cost information, gaps that you can fill in. And if it's something that is just not something that you have the skill set or the team to handle, hire somebody to help you, because it's worth it. It's worth doing it right. And having that good data, as soon as you can, so that you can use it moving forward from that point.
I love that. I guess what I would add to that is that as an industry, cannabis wasn't always as concerned with data as we need to be nowadays. I guess as the industry is maturing and there's a lot of price compression, the profit margins are reduced. It's more important now more than ever to take this seriously and to operate a real business. Especially if you're in more mature markets, getting your head around the data. Like, I have clients that have been in the industry for a long time, and they're just now really learning to respect it. Because this is the difference between whether you have a profitable store or not, and whether you're here, frankly, this year or next year. Or, if you have a lot of stores, whether all of them are going to, be doing well in the future. So I'd say we need to have a healthy respect for data, the analytics, the insights it provides, actually use it. We can hit the discounting strategies. There's so many things that can be done with it. So I'd say for those folks that have been in the industry, operators for a very long time, we need to get with it, right? That's one of my missions. And for the newer folks that are in the industry, we're working with some newer folks in the industry in, say, the Northeast, for example. Learn your data now. Learn why it's important now, because your margins aren't going to be as good as they are potentially in 2-3 years from now, right? So get good practices now. Learn from the lessons of all the other people who are learning it now. So that's my speech. Anything to add to that?
Well, you're right. Yeah, it's a real business. Start operating it like one, right?
Yeah, 100%. So where do we find you online or otherwise, Sonya?
You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Sonya Kachinski, and that's the only place I would like you to find me. Yes.
Good for you. Good for you. Boundaries. How about you, Dina?
I'm also on LinkedIn, Dina Nagib, also Grass Goddess Consulting. And then the website is grassgoddessconsulting.com. And we also have an Instagram, grass_goddess_consulting.
Awesome. And then, we have a ton of events coming up. So you'll see us at, the NECANs, where else? We're going to a lot of different places. Hall of Flowers, there's just a lot of conventions and events that are kicking off. Show season is about to start. So we'll see y'all on the road as well. And for me, you can find me at verdantstrategies.com and more simply at 420cpa.com. Again, thank you so much to the Beard Bros, and check out the full length of this podcast, and hope this was informative to everybody. That's what we aim to do, is inform and give some insights from people that have been doing this for a little while. I think that's really, really important. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
me, ladies.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.